Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at a channel called The Bitter Truth and trying to get to the real facts of what they're talking about. The real bitter truth, you might say. So first let's take a look at this video and I'll deconstruct it as we go.
The government have come up with a new idea, which I'm sure it will just stay as an idea. Anyway, the Home Office may fit asylum seekers with the electronic tag. I think that this is a fantastic idea. Day after day we keep seeing more and more arriving and then go missing without a trace.
It would be interesting to have the numbers of how many people are going missing. I've only been able to find, first of all, this report by Migration Watch, which is an anti-immigration organisation. Between 2021 and 2022, 580 unaccompanied child asylum seekers were recorded as missing or absconded. And the other source I found, this is an article from 2022 revealing that 227 migrants have absconded from hotels and are still missing. By and large, this problem stems from the processing being so slow and the government aren't doing the necessary checks quick enough, such as taking photographs or fingerprints, which is allowing people just to disappear for reasons we'll get into in a moment.
I do dread to think how much this is going to cost if it ever were to happen.
Yeah, and just on that, it would be so astronomically high, the cost. Logistics would be so ridiculous, it's just not something that's going to happen.
Again, it's just another set of lips moving without any action to back it up.
I agree with you on that. The other thing that's important to say as well is this website, and of course this is coming from the Express, this website is an anti-asylum website, an anti-immigration website, and so you have to take things with a pinch of salt. You have to probably double check figures and stuff. The way things that are going to be presented to you are going to be biased in some way, right? This is the agenda of this organisation, is to have people agree with them that immigration is bad, and you need to ask why for real reasons. And 580 people doesn't tell me that asylum is a bad process or is a process that doesn't work, or that immigration is bad or immigration doesn't work.
Take a look at this. An asylum seeker who showed off his journey from France on TikTok is now living the life of luxury in a sophisticated 4-star hotel with the coziest beds in London. Yes, that's...
On the subject of bias, one of the things that's important to note is, say, take this for example, this migrant showing off and stuff. The migrant, the asylum seeker hasn't asked to be put in this hotel. This is a decision that the government have made on their own back, with their majority and with their power. They've got a multitude of different options they could do, but this is what they've chosen to do. Now, personally, and a lot of other people share this view, I think that is simply just to make people angry, just to make the taxpayer angry. They're going to take that bait, so to say, to push up this anti-asylum rhetoric. This is one example. Show me more examples. Show me there were 45,000 asylum seekers last year. Show me 20,000 examples of this. That should be pretty easy, alright? Or show me 10,000, show me 5,000 examples of this kind of thing. And then you'll have some genuine evidence there with some weight behind it, maybe. But given one person in a story from the Daily Mail, which is the basis of anti-immigration rhetoric in this country, it's been putting anti-immigration rhetoric into this country for over 100 years, right? It's the very reason why this paper was created.
That's right, here we go to the people who thought I was joking when I said that they're staying in better luxury than you, paid for by you.
they are in a special circumstance, and the taxpayer, well, I agree, people are in special circumstances at the moment. We're all feeling what's going on with the mess the government have created. It's not massively at our expense like that, right? The option isn't to stop spending money on asylum seekers in hotels or this, that and the other, and then give it to people so that everybody else can live in these 4 and 5 star hotels with pools and jacuzzis and that's not what's going to happen. And the other thing that's not going to happen is we're not going to suddenly stop spending or taking refugees or sending refugees away and then divert whatever money is being saved from that and then have it be spent on the British public. That's not going to happen. Never ever going to happen.
Check out the comfy beds, the free food, the swimming pools and the hot tubs that they get rewarded with for entering illegally.
The point I made earlier was that, you know, they don't want to be in these hotels. They haven't asked to be in these hotels, okay? They want to be processed. They want their asylum claims processed. And if that's taking up to 3 years to process one person's claim, how would you like to live in a hotel like that for 3 years? Some people will say, yeah, but they've never lived in a hotel for more than 2 nights, right? You don't want to be in a place where you're not in a fixed address. How are you going to work? You're in a state of limbo. You can't work while you're in a place like this, and you get, contrary to what some people say, very little in benefits. I think it's like £5 a week or something like that, no more than 10. And you would not give up your 9 to 5 job or whatever you do to live on £10 a week, would you, in a 4 or 5 star hotel? Some of the reasons why people do run away from these places is, one, because they're not genuine people, and I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say that none of these people aren't, you know, genuine. There are some people that are here just to get here and then disappear into the black market or whatever. Some people will be worried about being deported possibly to Rwanda, or, you know, feeling like they're not going to be treated fairly. Some people, as we know, are kidnapped into organised crime, into slavery, into modern slavery. You know, it doesn't just stop with the traffickers in France. You know, when they get here, they're preyed upon here too.
If I were to ever enter a country illegally, I'd be thrown in jail, possibly given some bread and some water, and to sit there until my flight home arrives.
That is absolutely true. Unless you were claiming asylum somewhere, which these people are doing. Massive point here, mate. These people aren't breaking the law. They're not breaking the law one little bit. You might not like it, but it is a legal process. Really important to go and read the UN Refugee Act if you haven't read that, and the human rights legislation, and read all those things. They haven't entered illegally, so that comparison it's a bit silly.
And for the ones that aren't staying in luxury hotels, don't worry, they're making just enough money to support themselves. A judge says that the wacky backy farms run by Albanian criminal gangs are at an epidemic level. Yes, all 4 of these men with no fixed abodes were all asylum seekers from Albania and just had to flee in order to start their new gardening business within the UK.
Well, then I think we'll both agree here, mate. They were criminals and not genuine asylum seekers. Okay? And nobody has got a problem with deporting criminals. No one's got a problem with that. No one's disagreeing with that at all. That's not an issue. I don't know if that's the situation here. If they've been granted asylum and then they've gone on to be criminals, they're criminals, and deport them if they came from another place, right? If it's safe to send them back to Albania, no problem. If they've come over here and they haven't been assessed and they haven't been granted asylum and they were supposed to be deported, that's a government problem. That's a border force problem. It's not. I'm not saying what they did was right. It wasn't. It was wrong, and they broke the law. And rightly, they're being punished for that, right? They're being deported for that or whatever. But the mistake there was made by the government or the Home Office, right? The border force or whatever department it is that deals with it.
Well done to the judge for giving a discount on sentencing, with the longest sentence being 21 months.
Well, is that 21 months here? Because I thought, you know, we both agree that we want criminals deported. Should they not be deported as quickly as possible if they've broken the law? I don't see the point in keeping them here for 21 months. You know, if the sentence carries over in Albania, okay, fair enough. But, you know, let's find out. Tell us what happens. Is that the case? The more research you do, the less research I would have to do. You know, that again, that's one example of that particular thing. Show me a few more cases of that. Show me a few more thousand cases of that if it's such a big problem.
Now, trying to remove these people from the country is proving more difficult than poking a square object through a round hole. From spineless politicians to human rights, and then of course to the...
It's quite funny that you mock human rights there a little bit, like, you know, I know that you think people are taking advantage of human rights, but it's not human rights to blame for that, right? The argument is these people should be treated fairly within their human rights, and fairly means doing it by law. If they have a genuine reason to be here, that will be found, and if they don't, that will be found and they'll be deported. No one's got a problem with deporting people who are genuinely not here for a genuine reason. No one, the most extreme leftist person I've talked to has no problem with that, and the most extreme right person I've talked to obviously has no problem with that at all.
Lefties strapping themselves to buses and airplanes in order to make sure people don't leave.
Lefties and whatever do-gooders or whatever, they're not strapping themselves to planes and buses to stop criminals being deported. They're just not doing that. It's an absurd claim.
Now, a foreign criminal who was spared deportation from the UK at the last minute due to protests has now been arrested on suspicion of a rather disgraceful crime. Now, whilst we can't...
I would feel a lot better if you gave better sources than the Daily Mail about these stories. I'm not saying that you know, he hadn't previously been convicted of a crime or something that he shouldn't have been here. Again, that is a mistake by the government, not, you know, not necessarily his fault that he's in the country. He should not have been allowed entry to the country. That it should have been found out that he was a criminal. Let's carry on.
Speculate whether or not this man has done this.
Well, no, we can't, because as it says right there, he's arrested on suspicion. So he may well be the criminal, and that's that. But arrested on suspicion, while he's suspected of something, you can't call him criminal, which, you know, that's quite obviously wrong.
Now, whilst we can't speculate whether or not this man has done this, why are we putting ourselves in a position where this man has remained in the country, where the police must have enough evidence in order to arrest him?
Because the UK is governed by law, right? It's governed by domestic law and international law. So human rights play a part. We have our own human rights laws, but obviously international laws come into it too. So when you're trying to deport somebody, the international laws come into play. Nobody has a problem with deporting somebody. If he's found guilty of that, nobody has got a problem with deporting him at all. You know, I think everybody would. It's just a non-subject. It's just a non-subject. I think everybody would agree if he's been convicted of something before that's really bad, or whatever the criteria is for not having somebody in our country from abroad that's done something like that, then fine, mate, send them away. They shouldn't have been here in the first place. Why were they? What failed to allow them here in the first place? Right? What failed to allow them to stay here? If it's not lefty lawyers either. You don't have lefty lawyers. Human rights aren't a lefty issue. They're a human issue. They cover whatever your political persuasion, whatever your religious belief. They're not woke, and they're not lefty, and they're not extreme right. They're not any political persuasion. They are human rights. They're your human rights, and they're my human rights. and they're even these people's human rights as well. But that's one thing that tries to make us all equal, are our human rights. The fact that we all share in these same values, these same standards. Oh man, I think I'm done with that video for now, because it's so much. Yeah. I want to finish this video by talking about why this is an important subject to me. If you've been happy with the video so far, it's pretty much over. This is just going to be me rambling on for a little bit. So about 15 years ago, around about then, when I was a younger lad, my views were very different to how they are now. Completely the opposite. In fact, you might have called me a gammon, and really I was a gammon, but I don't like to use that term. I don't like to use derogatory terms for people. But yeah, you would have called me that. And my views towards foreigners, and now this was more so to do with legal immigration from Europe, so when we were part of the EU, so the open borders and freedom of movement. My views on that were, very Brexity, and I did end up voting for Brexit based on that. So people that maybe knew me back then and haven't talked to me or watched any of my content on this, will probably have quite a shock to see how much my views have changed. And I still have a shock as well when I see my Facebook memories come up and it's some pro EDL post I was sharing, or Nigel Farage. I can't get away from it. People saw what I posted back then. I adored the guy. I thought he was a legend. Being a huge conspiracy nut as well at the time, there wasn't a conspiracy that I wasn't supporting. I mean, one led to another, that led to another, that led to another. And really importantly, at that time when I voted Brexit, I was watching a lot of documentaries about anti-EU stuff, so saying that the EU was the New World Order, and I'm sure that stuff's still going about now. I had no idea really what they were talking about. It was the atmosphere of everything, the lure of this New World Order and global takeover, and this underworld of secret people that rule the world. It was interesting to me, and it was easy for me to believe at the time. With hindsight, that is purely because I didn't know any better. Obviously, after voting Brexit and getting to know some people, meeting like asylum seekers and foreigners and becoming friends with them, and meeting lots of different people, and like a gradual process over time, my views have completely flipped 180 degrees. I can see how wrong I was, and it's looking back on those posts and stuff that I posted and thinking about things I said at the time that make me feel embarrassed, and like I was a fool back then. I really was. I was talking about something that I had no idea about. I wanted to kick myself, and I didn't want that to happen again. I didn't want it to happen. I didn't want to be so wrong again. So the obvious thing was to look up things, right? Don't start talking about things before you know something about it. So, because, and the way I see it now as well, me back then was like, say I don't know anything about bricklaying, okay, but me back then, it was essentially me going up to a bricklayer and trying to tell him that the place he got his sand from was trying to mess up his brickwork or something. Why'd you say that, mate? I think Dave said something about it or something. That was my level of knowledge, and it's simply by learning stuff you can become smarter. I think that's the way it goes, isn't it? But you stop people being able to take advantage of you, and you stop people being able to lie to you. For example, when somebody says illegal immigrant, that's completely the wrong term to use for somebody that's crossing the channel, right? just on a fundamental level, I think I might have said it in this video, but you can't solve this problem outside of the law. It has to be solved within the law. Now, if that means changing laws, then yes, that's one thing you could do. It's going to mean taking us out of the Refugee Convention, which, I mean, I don't see that being possible, and especially not because you'd have to leave the Human Rights Act as well. You know, we're founding members of those things. We wrote the book, essentially. So that's, you know, that's not going to happen. Yeah, like I've said before, it's a complex issue, but really 3 fundamental things changing to solving this issue are to clear the backlog of claims, to have a safe and legal route to asylum, negotiate return agreements with the EU again, you know, something, because the Tories have made such a mess of this situation, completely of their own making. It didn't need to be like this. It didn't have to be like this. Yeah, thanks for watching the video, guys. If you stuck around till the very end, thank you, it means a lot. And if you like this content and you give it a like, that means a lot as well. That helps me get out there. That helps, hopefully some of these people one day will see this video and actually reply back to me. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.